But today, what I'm really wanting to talk about is, I say agile, but what it really is that I'm going to be talking about today is talking about the way that we work. And I think this is such an important conversation. And I think it's something that I would love to have more conversations with people about in general. And really like being critical about how we work, like how do we roll out projects, how do we collaborate, how do we engage, how do we communicate, and really looking at all of this and what Agile has done for us. And I'll talk about what Agile is in a minute, but what Agile has done for us is it's really given us this framework to work within so that we can have a really collaborative work environment and everybody can feel engaged and yes, it's a project management methodology, but it's so much more than that. So I'm going to get into that a little bit. And I will say too, and I'll talk about the context of what my group looks like, but I really do think that the things I'm going to talk about today, anyone can use. Like no matter what size your team, no matter what kind of projects you work on, we're a bigger team and we have pretty complex projects, but you could be a team of one. You could be working on a project on your own and still use some of these concepts to to just improve, continuously improve, and be really, again, like really critical about how you work and how you engage with others. So just as a bit of an introduction to myself, I think I know a lot of you, but my name's Mary Catherine, and I'm the manager of web services here at Carleton. I've been at Carleton for 14 years this month, which means I get an additional, I think it's 5 days vacation this month. So that's very exciting. But yeah, I've been at Carleton for a while. I've mostly been in ITS, but I've also been in other positions, mostly in communications roles. And I've been the manager of web services now for, I think, going on 5 years, which is, I mean, time just flies. But web services in general, I'll just give a bit of an overview just for context around what it is that we do and what we work on. So we are the enterprise web services department within ITS. We are 6 developers, 3 client comms experts, 2 co-ops, 1 contractor, and myself. So again, we're a pretty big team in terms of like Carleton team, in terms of the Carleton teams go. We manage probably your website. You're probably on our template if you're here, but we manage roughly 650 WordPress websites in 2 main WordPress themes right now, which are called CMS and Framework. We have 12 custom websites. So these are things like carleton.ca. So the main homepage, we manage that, the events calendar, the intranet, and more. There's 12 of them. I won't list them all. We have 7 websites in our new WordPress pilot, which is the CU theme, sort of version 1. We're working on version 2 right now, which we will actually give you a sneak peek of at the very end of this presentation. So I'm going to try to not go over so that we get a chance to look at what we're developing with CU theme right now. We also do a lot of client support. We do ITS communications, e-commerce, accessibility training, website training, workshops, talks like these. And we have some new projects that we're working on. So we have a design system. We work on some new React apps. So this is what we're building the new events calendar in and what the new intranet is going to be built on. And then, like I mentioned, there's CU theme version 2. So like I said, we're a pretty big department. We've got a lot of moving pieces. We've got a lot going on. We've got a lot of big projects that we're working on. But really, when it boils down to it, there are really 2 different types of work that we do. And this might be different from a lot of your departments, but again, for context in terms of how we use Agile. So we have our client requests. So this is anything that you put into the ITS service desk. It comes to us through that service desk, and our tickets are created in a dashboard in Jira, and we all have access to it, and we manage all of our tickets through Jira. They come in first to our client team, which is mostly Charlotte and Andrew, so they're kind of the first touch point. And then if it's a development task, it'll then be assigned to what we've kind of created this superhero role, which I'll talk a little bit about. And so the developer on the team who is the superhero for those 2 weeks, they will be the one to get those dev tickets. And on average, we get about 100 requests a month. So we're pretty busy on the client side answering your requests. Charlotte and Andrew and our co-ops do an amazing job. I'm sure that a lot of you have been in touch with one of them at some point or another. And then we have our project work. So we manage all of our projects. They're not generally managed by project managers. We really control the projects ourselves. And so we create all of the business requirements, we create all the technical requirements and all of the user stories and tasks that go along with it. I'll explain what that means when I get into what Agile is. We have a lead for each project. So we have 3 senior developers. So one of the senior developers is the lead on each of those projects. It's all managed in Jira. I'm going to talk a little bit about Jira, but really when it comes down to if you want to implement any of this stuff, you don't need Jira. And I'm going to show you some examples of what you can do in Google Docs to manage your work, but we would be lost without Jira. We do everything in Jira. We need somewhere to manage all of this work. And so on average from like this project work, we complete about 70 tasks in 3 weeks. And so yeah, so that's a bit of an overview about what we do. Now, when talking about Agile and getting into that kind of methodology, there are some things that when I first became the manager of the department, there were some things that were very clear that weren't working or that we had issues with or that we had to address. And so I wanted to put out some of these questions because some of the questions that you might have on projects that you work on might be similar. So the first question is, how can we break down these big projects into smaller deliverables? I'm not just talking about smaller tasks that can be delegated, but really like how do we deliver incrementally as opposed to just pushing out these big releases with so many changes? Like, how do we get to this place where we're pushing out smaller changes as we go? How can we do a better job of knowledge transfer on projects? This was probably the biggest one, and this was one of the things that that Agile was most appealing for me because we had the situation, like in one of our projects that we had only one of our senior developers who really knew the project, who really knew the product, and this basically meant that like he couldn't go on vacation. And when he tried, like sometimes he would get a call like on the very first day of vacation. And the first time that happened, I was like, no, this is not good. This can't happen. It's not just bad for him, obviously. No individual should be holding all of that information. But from an organizational perspective, like that's just a huge risk, right? So we had to have a lot more knowledge transfer on projects. No one person can be holding all of the information. How do we better balance client support tickets and project work? So what was happening before is tickets were just coming in, and one of the developers, who most often was actually the one who couldn't go on vacation, would be the one handling all of them. And he's amazing and happy to do it. But again, like that's not sustainable. It shouldn't just be one person handling all of the tickets. It should be better spread out amongst the team and a better balance between working on like the fun, cool stuff and supporting more like the legacy stuff, right? So we had to have a better balance there. How do we make sure that blockers are worked through quickly? So blockers are basically anything that's stopping us from moving forward in our work. So sometimes someone would be stuck with an issue and they would just be working on it on their own, banging their head against the wall until they were just like, oh, I can't figure this out. Now there's no banging heads on walls. Like the issue is brought up right away, blockers are brought up right away, and the team gets together to try to solve it together. How do we better manage client requests, changes, deadlines? I'm sure that you guys are facing things like this too, around like just managing deadlines in general. How do we increase collaboration amongst the team? How do we make sure we're prioritizing the important things? How can we make sure we're continuously improving? Now, as a manager, this is one of my values. I have a couple values that I adhere to as like my own personal managerial things, but continuous improvement is very high on my list. And I love being critical about what we're doing and always looking for ways to improve. How can we make sure that we're delivering quality projects that have undergone QA and testing and not pushing out things that we know we have bugs in it? How can we do more with limited resources? I think everybody here probably can like nod their heads to that one because we are all working in environments where we just don't have all the resources that we would like to have. So how do we make sure that we're using our resources to the best of our abilities? And the last one, which is also very like near and dear to my heart and probably like the most important thing in all of this is how do we create an engaged, enthusiastic workplace where people feel heard, valued, and appreciated. This one is so important to me. It's in our plan. It's I believe so much in creating a positive work environment, healthy work culture, and all of that. And Agile has really helped to create the framework to allow this to happen. So some of the questions that you might have in your own departments might be similar to these. You might have some of your own questions, but it's a really good place to start. Like, what problems are you trying to solve? What are your biggest pain points? And then maybe some of the things that I talk about today can help you to work through some of these things. So for us, the very, very first thing that we needed was a plan. And really, this is just to set out our priorities for the year. So we work within an academic year. Charlotte's going to share the link here. We post this for anybody to see. And it's our whole plan for everything that we want to accomplish over the 2022-2023 academic year. So we have 3 key areas for us. It's product and services, client support, and the way we work. And if you want to take a look at that plan now or later or whatever, you'll see that we have objectives within each of those areas. So things like establishing positive relationships with stakeholders. We want to be the leaders in digital accessibility. We want to work in an updated and modern environment, foster an environment of continuous improvement, work in a healthy environment. So these were objectives that I put out to the team. And then we had a workshop, and everybody on the team wrote down their ideas on how we can meet those objectives. Oh, I'm just going to admit somebody. Char, do you get notifications for that too? If people are okay, perfect. But yeah, I encourage you to check out the plan. Everything is in there. And that plan that was created really was, I mean, I set the high level priorities and the high level goals, but it was really a team collaborative plan. It was things that people want to work on. A lot of people that are on my team have also been at Carleton for a long time, and we know the things that we need to improve. Like, we know the areas that we'd like to be working on. So everybody had an opportunity to put in their initiatives that they want to be working on over the next year. And there were so many brilliant ideas. We couldn't add them all, and so some of them will fall into next year. And so basically from there, I prioritized the initiatives, I wrote out the goals, and we established some deliverables. So starting with the plan is huge. This is a whole other thing, like outside of Agile and what I'm going to talk about. I could hold a whole other workshop just on creating the plan because it was quite an endeavor, but you kind of just need to know, like, what are you working on, right? What is the important things that you need to be focusing on over the next 6 months or a year or whatever. So once we had our plan, then we were like, how do we roll out this plan? And so that's where Agile comes in. And the way that we were kind of introduced to it was because I had 2 senior developers at the time who had both worked in other larger organizations, and they had used Agile as a basically like software delivery model. And by having people who had previously worked with it, it was really, really helpful for them to come in and help guide it. I didn't know anything about it. I read as much as I could. I took a whole bunch of workshops. I read books and listened to podcasts, and I basically became really obsessed with it. And then we just tried. We just like started to try things. So basically what Agile is, so it's good to think of Agile as sort of the philosophy. It's a philosophy of how you roll out projects, and it's predominantly used in the IT software delivery world. But really, you could use it for anything. Like I think you could use it for wedding planning, like you could, or for cleaning your house or managing. You can really use it for absolutely anything, because what it comes down to is clarifying work that needs to get done, and involves and engages people who need to be involved to get that work done. It really focuses on output. So you are actually delivering something at the end of whatever the cycle is that you create. And it's a structure, but it's also a mindset. So, and the mindset here is, it's a mindset of continuous improvement, of continuous delivery, continuous improvement, and engagement. And so the delivery part of this is actually called Scrum. I just call it Agile because it's just easier. There's a lot of different terminology in Agile that I could throw out there, but Scrum is the project management framework itself. And it really focuses on teamwork, accountability, incremental delivery, and continuous improvement. And what it really is, it's just a defined amount of work to get the work done. I'm sorry, defined amount of time to get the work done. And this time is called sprints. You have in a typical Scrum environment, there are some designated roles. And this is where one of the senior developers who had came in previously was skeptical, because he was like, well, we don't have all of these roles. Like, you're supposed to have, like, I think 4 to 5 defined roles within a proper Agile environment, and we just don't have the capacity for that. So when we started, I was the product owner, the project manager, the Scrum Master. I was kind of doing all of the roles, and over time we sort of figured it out, and now we have a new way of working. So we have a product owner, and this is really like the lead of the project. So the product owner is the one who knows the project the best. They're the ones who can write out all the tasks that need to get done. They're the ones who really like understand the project the best. So on your team, it might be whoever is the one, like let's just say that you're looking to do a website overhaul project. So it would be the one who knows the website the best, right? And then they would be the one to like say, okay, in order for us to do this, we need to do all of these things. So they would be the one to really map out what needs to get done. And then we have a Scrum Master, but we call the Scrum Master our superhero. So traditionally, the Scrum Master is the one who runs the daily stand-up meeting. So the daily stand-up meeting is an important part of all of this, and they're the ones who run the meeting. They're the ones who keep it on track. They're the ones who address any blockers that might come up. And for us, so the way that we kind of like, we tried a bunch of different things, and then what we were finding was we were working in this like great environment, and it was going well, except that was for our projects. And then we still had all the service desk tickets coming in. We were like, okay, well, how do we manage all of these service desk tickets within this environment then? And so we decided to create this superhero role. And so what our superhero is it's a developer on the team who is responsible for all service desk tickets that come in for 2 weeks. So they are off project work, ideally. It depends on how busy they are. Like, they still do project work, but the idea is that the person who's the superhero is the one handling all of the service desk requests. They are the ones who are making sure that our documentation is up to date. I really love when a new developer gets to be the superhero role, because they get to take on a task. Like, they might get a task from the queue for something that they don't know, and they have to look it up in our documentation. And so their role is to ensure that our documentation is up to date. So it's been a really, really important role. And one great thing about our superhero as well, they're the ones who run the stand-up. And I love this because it gives every developer a chance to run a meeting. And I think that running meetings is such an important skill, and just giving people that opportunity to do it helps to build their skill sets. And typically, like when people are first superhero and they have to run the sprint for the first time, they're like a little nervous, and it's been uncomfortable. And then it's so nice to see the more they do it, the more confidence grows, like their style of running it comes out. And I just think it's such a good opportunity for people to run meetings. So yeah, so those are our designated roles that we have. All of the work is defined in user stories and tasks, so I'll show you that. And there are really 4 really important meetings that we do. And I'm going to get into details about these 4 meetings. And there are 4 meetings that you can run on your teams as well. So we have our sprint planning meeting, we have our daily stand-ups, our demos, and our retrospective. So I'll get into details about that. And then at the end of the sprint, we do something really unique. And I don't know any other organization, any other group that does this or has the capacity to do this, but we do a 1 whole week of learning and development. And that came about because we are working in a new technology stack. And it might be in your groups. I'm just thinking in terms of like, if you work in communications and you're interested in doing something on a new social media platform that you're not that familiar with, when do you find time to learn that, right? And if you have so many other tasks that you're responsible for, it's sometimes hard to just fit in the learning. So we decided to just take a whole week where we learn, and it's been really good to do that. So yeah, that's the overall kind of like structure, all of the kind of like key things you need to know in the delivery of Agile. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is our sprint planning meeting. So we actually just had our sprint planning meeting yesterday. And so what it was it was about I think it went for 2.5 hours yesterday, actually. But it was a long meeting, and we had it at the beginning of this sprint because we had the 4-week holiday. So it just made more sense to do it when we get back. So that's another thing too, with all of this, you can be super flexible. Like if things, sometimes we do sprint planning meetings on Friday, sometimes we do them on Monday, sometimes we skip the demo. You can be really flexible with whatever works. But typically it's a 2-hour meeting at the end of learning and development. And the tools that we use for this are Jira and Teams. So we come into the meeting with a prioritized backlog. So really it's a list of tasks that we know we have to do. And at this meeting, we discuss what needs to get done, how much time it will take, and who is the best person to take the lead on that task. And then once all of the user stories are reviewed, we go through the list to make sure that it's a reasonable amount of work for over the next 3 weeks. And then at the end of that meeting, we start the sprint and the work begins. So this is our Jira board. I'm just showing this as an example. But on the left here, you see all issues. So these are all of our kind of projects that are broken down. So right now I'm looking in the events calendar, user testing, Epic, which are basically all of the user stories that are involved in testing our new events calendar. So we're in the stage now, we're testing it. It's very exciting. So basically, Ishdeep has taken the lead on creating all of the user stories required for testing, and he's really written out details. And this is an important part, and this is something that we've started doing a lot more in our sprint planning meetings, is really getting into the details of what does each task, what is involved in each task, exactly what does the person need to do. And so in this case, it's a really good example because anyone who's assigned this task, so it says, as a user, I want to navigate through the events calendar. Sounds pretty simple, right? You just navigate through. There are specific things that we need to check. So he's like outlined everything that person needs to go through. So whoever gets assigned this task shouldn't have any questions. They should get the task and be able to run with it. And if they do have any questions, they should be brought up at the sprint planning meeting so that it can be mapped out as best as we can so that when we start the sprint, we're in a position where we have all the information that we need. Up at the top here are the names of everybody on the team. So we can click through and see who is assigned what. So in the sprint planning at the end, I'll click through Andrew, Charlotte, Chris, Ishdeep, and say, is this reasonable? Is this enough work? Is this too much? And if we say, oh, I don't know, and people have to be super, super honest. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get all of that done. Okay, well then let's pull it out, because it's so much better to underplan than overplan and not feel the pressure. And again, do things really quality and take the time and make sure that we're not trying to take on too much over the next 3 weeks and be really realistic in our planning. Oh, my dog. Sorry, my dog. Next, we have our daily stand-up meetings. So the goal of these meetings is first and foremost to say hello to everybody on the team. We all work virtually in web services, and so it's not, well, Andrew goes into office every now and then, but we really are in a virtual environment. And so it's nice to just see everybody every day and check in. And so we meet every morning from 9 till 9:15, and we use Microsoft Teams. And on Fridays, we actually go over the Jira board. So these meetings are run by the superhero. They're short and to the point, and each person states what they did yesterday, what they're working on today, and whether or not they have any blockers. So here is the team from one of our stand-ups. Everybody's smiling and happy. Again, just really nice to see everybody every morning. And we've gotten to a point now where we are really quick about these. We are almost always done by 9:15. And then what happens after 9:15 is all the developers then meet immediately after that call, and they go over any of the blockers that they might have. So really enjoy that meeting. The next thing that we have are the demos. So the demos happen at the end of the sprint. This is where we show off what we did to the customer. So right now, one of our key projects that we're working on is the events calendar. So the idea is at the end of this sprint, we will invite all of the key stakeholders of the events calendar, and we'll show off the work that we've done in this sprint. Generally, I will show any stats, like how many tickets we closed, how many tasks we did, any key issues that came up, things like that. And here, the developers are the ones who really lead. I say developers, but it's the comms people too. But the people who did the work are really the ones who get to show off their work, which is great. And then the customer oohs and ahs over all the work we did. And we hope to get feedback. That is the main goal of the demo, is to get feedback from our clients. And so this has been I love the demos. We don't do them as often as we should. We sometimes skip these, but it's just such a great way for people to show off the work that they did, get the appreciation for the work that they did, and most importantly, get feedback. And even if it's just our team that we demo to, it's still a great opportunity for everyone on the team to kind of be brought into the loop and give feedback on the different things that are being developed. So at our last sprint, like I said, the main thing that we're working on right now is the events calendar that's in the middle. But we also, it's an opportunity to show off like any small block that, or not small block, but any block that we've been working on in CU theme. So here I have a people card, just showing as an example. I have the events calendar. And then our two co-ops, Quinn and Nadine, they've been doing an Instagram pilot for us. And then, so part of that demo, the idea is to report back on the pilot and how it's performing. So it can be a variety of things that we demo. It's not just always showing like the tech, the actual like tech stuff, but sometimes it's a new newsletter format. Sometimes it's updates to a web page. It could be basically anything that was in the sprint that somebody wants to show off. Okay, and I think this is the last, is it the last one? Yeah, the last meeting that we do is called the retrospective. And this is my favorite meeting. And this is one that I try not to ever skip because there's so much value in this meeting. What it is, it's basically an opportunity for us to say what did not go well in the sprint, what went really well in the sprint, and then to take that information and create action items and then be even better the next time. So when we first started doing sprints, we started with just one project. So now we do everything, but we started with just one. And we had like the longest list of things we could improve. So it's not necessarily what did not go well, but it's like, how can we be better? And it was like, so many ideas, which is amazing. And people were able to be really honest and really open about what wasn't working and what we needed to do better. And so over time, we've taken all of those and made it better and better and better and better. And now the list of things that we have is much smaller. And actually, I find also a lot more complicated because we've handled all like the easy things. And now we're getting into like, how do we change this whole process or do something completely differently? But it's still so valuable. And that list has gotten smaller. And the list of things that went well is just, it's so nice. And it almost ends up being like, Charlotte did an amazing job with this. Andrew was awesome with this. Kevin like killed this task. And it's just such a nice morale booster. It's so good for the team to get together and just kind of reflect on all of the work that we did and have an opportunity to say like, I think we can do this better, or we did this really, really amazing. And so I love the retrospectives. We were using this other like board for it, and then we shifted to just using the chat, and that worked out really well. I'll show you that in a minute. And then something that we did a bit differently just in the last sprint is we introduced this idea of a sprint champion. And I was a bit hesitant to do it at first because I really do think that everybody stands out in some way or another during the sprint. I mean, we get so much done. It is amazing to see. But oftentimes it would be that one person really would stand out in one way or another. Either they would, close a lot of service desk tickets, or they got like a really, really great message from a client, which showed that they gave really excellent customer service, or they worked through like a really, really hard issue, or really collaborative, or there was like something like that. And so we thought, let's create this like sprint champion to appreciate someone who did go above and beyond. So what we did was have every person on the team nominate somebody. And so I read all of the nominations, and then I just picked a name out of the hat, and then that person won as sprint champion. And it was so nice to read all of the things that people had said, but I'll show you that in a second. So yeah, in terms of the retrospective, so this is just a view of how we run our retrospective. So you can see that I wrote in there what went well, and then everybody just types in all of the things that went well. And then we talk about it. We go through the items one by one, and we chat a little bit about it. And then we go over what could we do better or what did not go well. And you don't have to read those ones. We're going to work on those. But basically out of this, we go through them and we really talk about it and discuss them really openly and honestly. And then I create an action items list of things that we can integrate into our next sprint and be even better. Because if you don't talk about it, right, if you don't address it, you're just going to have these same issues come up over and over again. So creating the space, creating the time to really reflect and talk about how are we working? It's not just about the products that we're delivering, right? Like it might be like, oh, we put out something with a lot of bugs. It's not usually that kind of thing. Like sometimes it is more on the technical, but oftentimes it's things that we can do differently in our processes, or just things that we can do a little bit differently. And a lot of ideas come out of this. So I love this meeting. And then in terms of the Sprint Champion nomination, so I just wanted to kind of put this there to say, like the kinds of things that came in, it was like if people could write in things really quickly, put a lot of time into it. Really, it's just nominating somebody. So a lot of like crushing it, amazing work, solving lots of tickets, awesome energy and enthusiasm, fun new ideas to get info to clients, amazing job, excellent job, tremendous effort, amazing work, awesome work. I mean, how often do we get to really, say these things about our colleagues? We have service excellence awards, sure, but like every 3 weeks we get to say, hey, this person did an amazing job and I appreciated what they did. And I love this, taking the time to really reflect. I'm going to stop talking soon and I'm going to put it over to you with some ideas. But the last part that we have here is the learning and development week. So what we do is one full week after each sprint, and the learning is tied directly to the work that we're doing, obviously, right? And it's also a time to wrap up outstanding tasks. It's a time to document. And we do all of our meetings during this week. So our retrospectives, our demos, our sprint planning, and that has been amazing because then during the actual sprints, it allows us to just better focus on the work and not be distracted by these kinds of like necessary meetings that we have. But yeah, the learning and development, I'm a big fan of it. It's going really, really well. It gives people an opportunity also to just like regroup. What has kind of happened though, and I'm trying to put a to it, tasks have just sort of started to fall over into learning and development week. And we actually talked about that in one of our retrospectives and said learning and development week has kind of just become an extension of the sprint. Like people are still working on their sprint tasks. And so to me, what that signaled was that we weren't planning appropriately. We need to plan better for 3 weeks, and after the 3 weeks, the task has to be done. And if it's not done, that means that we've overplanned. So this sprint that we're going into now, we've significantly underplanned it, with the expectation though that bugs and issues are going to come out of the events calendar testing that will move into the sprint, but really being mindful of not overplanning so that we can use the learning and development week for what it is actually intended for. So a bit of a summary, kind of pulling it all together. So we work in 3-week sprints. Our superhero is assigned for 2 weeks at a time, and they handle client requests and they run the stand-ups. We have our planning meetings. We use Jira. I set the priorities. We talk about each task, and we add as many details to the tasks as we can. And as soon as that meeting is done, we start our sprint. We meet every day for our stand-ups, talk about what went well, what we did yesterday, what we're working on today, and whether or not we have any blockers. We do a demo where the developers and the client's comms experts get to show off the work that they did. This is a great meeting for overall morale and just showing off the work that we did and to get feedback as well. Our retrospectives are all about lessons learned and continuous improvement. And here we announce the Sprint Champion, and then the Learning and Development Week, which is all about learning and transferring knowledge and documentation. And so I have transfer knowledge in there too, because it's an opportunity for somebody, if if a developer has only been working on CU theme and they haven't touched the events calendar, this is a good week for them to go in and dig around in the code in events calendar and figure out some things that that they weren't yet exposed to. So really focusing on the knowledge transfer side of things. All right, I'm going to take a drink of water. I'm talking a lot. So your turn. So I've put together some kind of questions and just some tips on how you can maybe integrate this into the work that you do. So like I said, this is something that even though we're a big team with complex projects, I really do think that it can be used for any groups. I gave this a similar, it's a little bit different. I gave a similar presentation to a conference in the States last year, and I won an award actually for this presentation, which was amazing. It's a pretty big conference, the High Ed Web conference for all of North America. And I had somebody come up to me afterwards who was a team of one, and she said she had so many ideas of how she was going to change the way that she works. And I was so happy to hear that, because it's not just for big teams. And I also have met with some other universities who came to that talk, and I've talked to their groups, and somebody came back and said that they're on their team, they're a lot more productive. And I love this because it's a team of developers. Their team is entirely men as well, which I won't get into that, but I do think it's important to have a bit of a balance, right? But what he said was that by implementing some of the suggestions that I made, their team is a lot more productive, and also they brought more joy to their team. Like, how great is that? So really happy to hear that. So I just preface that to say, no matter what size your team is, I do think that there are some things that that you can implement. So in terms of the sprint planning meeting, so what you can do. So first off, again, I talked about us having a plan. So the first step is to really know, like, what are your key deliverables over the next 6 months or a year? So having a clear idea of what it is that you need to get done. And then from there, I would recommend starting with just one project. So maybe the project, I'll use a website revamp as an example. So if that's your one project, then you can create a list of all of the tasks that need to get done in order to revamp your website. So this could be anything from reviewing content on specific pages. Maybe you need to review your images. Maybe you want to have an accessibility scan done by our group. Maybe you need to review who has access to your website. Maybe you need to review your navigation structure. So there's a lot of different things that you could potentially look at and start to create that list of all of the things that you need to do. So make sure that these lists are also as small as possible. So reviewing your navigation is actually a really big task. So maybe that can actually be broken into 3 smaller tasks that can be delivered in 2 weeks' time, right? And maybe one of those first steps is to just have like to review other websites, to review what other departments are doing in other universities, to do a little bit of research. So maybe that's the first, very, very first task that you would want to get done in the first 2 weeks. But yeah, the idea is to make them as small as possible. They should not take longer than the sprint. So I recommend starting with a 2-week sprint. That's what we started with. It worked really well at the beginning. And then you can adjust it. We did 2 weeks, and then we moved to 1 week at one point, and that just did not work. And then we moved to 3 weeks, and we're really happy at 3 weeks. So you got to just find what works for you. And then you set up a 1-hour meeting for the Monday at the start of the sprint, invite everyone who's involved in the project, and have your backlog ready to discuss. So if you say anyone who's going to be involved in your website revamp project, make sure that they are in that meeting and that they understand the purpose of the meeting and why you guys are meeting, and how the work is going to be planned out. So at this sprint planning meeting, you really go into the work that needs to get done. Now, you're not talking about the whole backlog here. You're not going through all of the tasks in the backlog. You just want to talk about the things that you need to get done in the first 2 weeks. So you might only have like 5 items in there, max, depending on the size of your group, depending on your resources, depending on how much time they will take. But basically, you want to pull up the most important things and and then you talk about what is involved, what needs to get done, what people need to be involved, and you really discuss them in as much detail as you possibly can, so that thinking in terms of like if someone else were delegated that task, they can take that task and run with it. You wouldn't have to explain anything else. And then you review the sprint. So you go over what was discussed, you look at what each person is responsible, and you just basically make sure that everyone is clear on what they need to do, and that you haven't overplanned, and that everybody's clear on what they need to deliver in the next 2 weeks. And then at the end of that meeting, you get to work. So I'm going to show you an example. So again, we use Jira. It's quite complicated to set up and get into, but you can also just use a Google Doc. So I just showed an example here of something that we use for our content planning for our newsletter, but you could just use a Google Doc. And Char's putting in an example of the worksheet there, but basically you can still have who is the owner, what is the task, and then you can add comments to the task for all the details. You can put it in a different category. You can set the status. So if somebody's working on it, it's pending. If it's done, it's published. And then any other notes, you can just keep track. And then you have your backlog here. So it doesn't have to be complicated. Basically, you just need somewhere where you can have a list of all the tasks that need to be done. Shara, do you want to give a little bit of an overview of the spreadsheet?
Yep, for sure. I just pasted a link in there. And if you go to that link, you should get prompted to make a copy. It's a Google Doc. And you can see we just kind of put the pertinent columns. You can modify this to fit with your own project. We have a little calendar there, and MK's highlighted the 2-week sprint. And also, if you work with Excel, you can download this as an Excel spreadsheet, if that works for you better. And be logged into Google if you want to make a copy.
Awesome, thank you. All right, and then you have a daily stand-up. And so here you check in every day. Again, review all of the things. And the goal here is to connect with the team, to identify blockers, and to get the support you need to move forward. So these can be really, really quick meetings. The next one is the demo, and here you just want to show somebody your work, and the goal is to connect with the person who's going to be the user of that product or the stakeholder of that product. And the goal here really is to get feedback and also to show off what you've accomplished over the last 2 weeks, right? And then the retrospective. So here, what you can do, again, ask what did not go well, what went well, create action items, and celebrate and show appreciation for the work that was done. And the goal here is first, I think, to foster an environment where people feel heard, valued, and appreciated. It's an opportunity for people to be really honest about what's not working and what you could do differently on the team to be better. And then to be better. That's really the goal of that. All right, so the title of this presentation was How Agile Has Transformed the Way That We Work. And just to, like, it really has, and in all of these ways, and more, I'm sure, but now our priorities are very clear. Everyone knows exactly what everyone is working on and what they should be working on. And if anything new comes up, it gets pulled into the sprint. There's so much more knowledge transfer happening. There are no more situations where just one person is alone working on something. It's highly collaborative, and the communication on our team is amazing. People get to choose the work that they want to work on, which is really nice. I think one way that we can enjoy our jobs more is if we have a little bit more power over the kind of work that we get to work on, right? The developers and client comms experts get to show off their work. I like that the developers actually get to run the stand-up meetings. I think that that's a great opportunity to learn a new skill set. Blockers are handled immediately. Nothing is holding up a project. It gets worked through right away. And we have also learned, so one thing that you might take away from this is, oh, that's a lot of meetings, right? But the time that we put in to plan, connect, and reflect is so worth it. It just sets you up for success when you take that time in advance to really like map everything out. So yeah, that's my spiel. I hope that you guys found this useful. We have about 5 minutes for questions, and then Ishdeep's actually going to show a little bit of CU theme. But are there any questions? You guys can put them in the chat or just put your hand up or speak up.
Oh, I see Neil.
Oh, Neil, yes.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Hi, I'm in mechanical aerospace engineering, and it's an interesting project management system. It looks like you reuse Jira heavily, but when you look at the Agile spreadsheet you put up there for the tasks, for the status, is just pending, and then you have the daily stand-up. So would updates to the work just go in the Jira system and not show up in this spreadsheet because it just says pending? You don't, or would you, where would you know what was done, each day?
Yeah, that's a good question. So really what the stand-up is, we don't type it anywhere. It's just saying where things are at. And in our Jira board, we only have in progress, blocked, and complete. Those are our only swim lanes that we use. And so when something is in progress, the work is just getting done. And so the update is very often specifics around the task and what was completed within that task. And then if there's any blockers, it's just brought up in that meeting. And then there's often a meeting that's set up immediately afterwards. So it's not, we're not actually typing in any updates. They're not documented anywhere. It's just more of a team check-in to make sure that we're all moving forward.
Okay. And so who sets up the tasks in Jira? Like, is there a ticket number for each task then?
So the tasks are added in the backlog of our actual, it's called a sprint board in Jira. And the backlog is just tickets that are created basically, and we create them as either tasks or user stories. And the lead of the project is the one to generally add those with all of the information. And then I'm the one who will pull them up into the sprint for discussion. But yeah, they're just tasks that are added, and they're just individual tasks within Jira.
Okay. And what training courses would you recommend for someone who wants to learn Agile?
That's a good question. I'm going to compile a list because I do have some resources. I'll put together a list and I'll distribute that.
Great.
I'll try to remember all the ones that I looked at. I basically Googled and read as much as I could at the time.
Yeah. I'd be also interested to hear your comment because what Shopify did a while ago, they stopped all meetings of more than 2 people. And it sounds like you have a lot of meetings with more than 2 people. So how do you think that works with them, or do you think they're actually doing that?
I don't know. I mean, I think that they must still do daily stand-ups. Like they must not be working. You can't not do these kinds of meetings within an Agile environment. So I have no idea. With more than, I mean, I think that what they're referring to mostly is like these useless committee meetings where nothing actually gets accomplished. I think that's what they were referring to. I don't know. That's a good question though.
All right. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. I think we had another hand up.
Yep.
Whoever has your hand up.
Go ahead, Christopher.
Hi, thanks for the talk. This is super informative. I really appreciate it. My question was, do you or has your team experimented with like any other project visualizations for the sprints, like Kanban or anything like that, or did you find that was kind of not productive for your use? Do you steer away from those type of visualization things generally? Just any of your thoughts would be appreciated.
Sure. So we used I'll show you the actual sprint board. It'll give you, that way you can kind of see. It is a bit like a Kanban board, except we were using the proper Kanban board at first. I know some of you don't know what in the world we're talking about when we say Kanban board. But I'll actually share my screen here. You can see, because it does still have the swim lanes, and I'll go to all issues. Okay, so this is our board, and you can have different views. So here, this is just the view of the backlog, and then this is the view of the active sprints. And here it's kind of like a Kanban board. Some people on the team, we were just talking about this morning, actually. Some people on the team prefer this because you can see in progress blocked. We should probably just get rid of resolve. We don't need that one because we really just need in progress, what's blocked and what's done. So again, we just started our sprint yesterday. So we have a lot of things that are in the to-do. This is just Troy that I'm on right now. But yeah, so this is the actual board that we work on. I don't love this view, only it works well if you're looking at individuals and what, so if Andrew is going to start any of these, he'll just drag and drop it into in progress and get started. But for me, I prefer this view just because I can see the list of things and I can set the critical. So we have some things that are critical that we can pull up to the top. And I just like that I can see what everybody is working on. So this is called the Scrum board in Jira. If you're already using Jira, then this is different from a regular project or from service desk projects. This is actually called a Scrum board. So we manage everything here. And like just looking into it here, like you can see it gets pretty complicated compared to what I showed you on just the spreadsheet, but you really can just use a spreadsheet to manage your backlog. Our backlog is at the bottom. So this is our current sprint. We have 79 issues in our sprint, which are totally doable, and I know that we can get through. But our backlog is at the very bottom. And so yeah, all this stuff down here, we have 97 issues in the backlog right now. So in the next sprint, we just pull things up from the backlog. This is getting really detailed into our Jira board.
This is awesome, though. Thanks for sharing that. That's very helpful.
Welcome. You're welcome. All right, any other questions, or can we move on to a bit of a CU theme overview, Ishdeep? All right, if you have any other questions, please feel free to reach out to me. I am quite passionate about this topic. Again, I think it's so much more than a project management philosophy. It really is looking at how we work and how we can improve communication and engagement and overall team culture. And it's conversations that I love to have. So feel free to reach out at any time. So Ishdeep, I'll pass it over to you for a bit of a CU theme sneak peek of the latest things being developed.
Thank you, MK. Good afternoon, everyone. So we are in process of redeveloping and redesigning our CU theme project, as few of might be using it already. Let me just share my screen. Can everyone see my screen? So this is what is happening on our local for now, and we are in process of developing different things. Recently, what I did was, as a team, we were developing a lot of features and the cards and option. I specifically worked on the people part or the people listing post type for it. And today I'm going to show you a glimpse of that, like what it gives and what it looks like and what kind of functionality you can achieve by using it, or like which is coming down the lane. So what happens is, like, you come to your particular, this is your WordPress dashboard, you come, there's a people post type. I already have a lot of data in it just to give you a little bit more visual representation, but you can create a new one. So I'm just going to edit mine. So in this, like, you have this thing called a sidebar where you have access to all, like, these are all designed by us. You have your first name, last name, any kind of degree. For example, like I have a master's degree. Sorry, yeah, I think it was disconnected. That's okay. Any kind of extension or anything that you are gonna have related to your particular profile. You have your LinkedIn's, everything will show up over here, as well as what you're gonna do is, like, you can add a featured image to the particular image as well. Let me just open this one. Yeah. So here I added a featured image to the particular image, or like to my personality, and then you can go back to a particular page. So this is a particular page that I created, in that I just added, I can add another one, like people card one. So if you add it, you can see like all the particular data is relating to me. Like you can see my image updated. These are different tags that we have. On the inspector panel, you will have like a lot of options like show image, or if you do not want to show image, so it will be something like this. You will have like more control over like if you want to show these kind of categories or not. You want to like order it or you don't want to order it. You want to see the emails or you don't want to see the emails. You can even control the number of units that you want to show in that particular listing. But you just want to show like 7, 8, or maybe less. Even you will have the column grid options. So like, for example, you want to show it in just in a 2-column or a 3-column grid or a 4-column grid. So they will be like, depending on what kind of information that you need and how you want to present it. Uh, that's one of the things that we have. Another version of it is the listing one. So it's as simple as like people listings. All the data is coming from those. So here we have a 2-column listing. We can do a 1-column listing as well. Like, so this is a new design that we are working on, and you can see like few images are not there. It's just because like we are revamping a lot of stuff, so I just need to add more images to it. Other than that, like everything seems to be working. However, like this is a view of the front end. If you do not have any image, what is going to happen is like your initials are going to come up in this avatar point of view. Right now, that image is broken. That's why we have a fallback image that we are using as the Carlton's image. And you can see the look and feel of it. Once you click on it, it will go to a single page, which we are still working on. So this is like one of the smaller sneak peek to the people component and the card and listing one that we are working on, and which is almost up to complete. And we'll be working on more features like similar to this. Any
Thank you
questions?
so much.
Anything?
That's great. Thanks. I know, Court, you have a question. I just want to say this is exactly the kind of thing that we would show in the demo. And now that we're working on a lot more CU themed blocks, we would love your feedback. So you saw the people post. Maybe there are fields that we've missed. There's information that you might want us to add. We want that feedback. So I like the idea of us either having like a demo meeting that anyone can come to, or we're going to put out information and put out things for you guys to poke around and play around with. I think that would probably be the best thing to do. We can send out links and then give everybody an opportunity to play around and then give us feedback within a certain amount of time so that we can add it to our next sprint. But yeah, thank you, Ishdeep. Court.
That's actually just what I was going to ask about.
Okay.
So on the people cards, how customizable is it for like what social medias you can list? Because I know right now it's not. We have set ones, but I don't have we don't use Facebook anymore. Our students aren't on it. We're using Instagram and TikTok, but those aren't options for us to populate right now. And even on our main webpage at the quick links at the bottom. So I'm just wondering how customizable is it going to be, or at least will there be more options for major platforms? Because even Carleton at large is using TikTok now and Instagram, and so just having those options that we can also link to our the people that work here, is that going to be possible?
For sure. So Troy, I know you want to speak to this, I'm sure. I just want to say something from an enterprise perspective. And I'm going to be reiterating this a lot as we move into CU theme. So this is an enterprise theme for the entire university. So one thing that we're trying not to do is to allow for a lot of individual customizations. Having said that, if the university says, and this is part of what the Web Governance Committee, the new Web Governance Committee is going to be addressing, what are our key social media platforms that the university is on? And then we will make sure that those are represented in the theme. And then potentially, depending on where we want to go with it, and Troy, I'll let you speak to this part, how customizable do we want to get with that beyond it? Technically possible. From a governance perspective, is that something we really want to do? I don't know. It's worth a discussion. Troy, did you have anything to add?
I mean, as far as the social stuff in the footer, depending on what the governance committee decides, if they decide to have 10 social media options there, those will be options available to our site users to input and fill out as they see fit. So if you're using 5 of them, but not 5 of the others, that's fine. We will accommodate for that if it's a decision that we've made to implement. As far as the user profiles go, it's the same sort of idea that we'll have that discussion at the governance committee level. And once that's decided upon, yeah, we will add the ones that we all agree that are a benefit to the wider Carleton community. One thing I think we won't be able to see is the social media icons on the individual cards, because the card itself is a clickable element. Having the icons on there and not be clickable is actually not as usable. It's not a nice UI thing. It makes people frustrated because they want to click on that social media icon. So, but we will have those on an individual profile page. So
I know we're over time. If anybody needs to drop off, totally understand. Thank you for coming. If you want to stick around and chat a little bit more, we can. Micah, you had your hand up.
I was just going to say, before we go to governance, it would be good to if there's a way to do a survey or something on what platforms people are using. It'd be useful, right? Just to have the information and say, you know, whether it's supported by the university or not, people are using the platforms, right? So it'd be a good idea to know like what everybody thinks their key social platforms are.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Okay. Anne.
Hi.
Hi.
I just wanted to mention for poli-sci, what we've been doing is on our people section that is for faculty. So we have a specific faculty page. We're using the title to list their research interests so for example, say a potential graduate student comes onto our website and wants to see what their research interests are all in one place. We can do